of the Lord.
Be seated. It is recorded that when Lord Cornwallis surrendered to General Washington at Yorktown, Virginia in 1781, the British band played a tune named "The World Turned Upside Down." Today I want to look at the world as seen through precisely those lenses. The world as seen through the lens of Christmas, as described by the players in the story of Christmas and their actions as they are drawn in the Gospels. Get ready. It's an Alice in Wonderland, upside down world as we consider the characters of the Christmas narratives and the topsy-turvy economy of God's kingdom expressed in Matthew and Luke's descriptions of the birth of Jesus. The actors in the Gospels read like characters out of a fairy tale, a mysterious visitor to a teenage girl announcing her pregnancy. She is a virginal innocent, no threat to anyone, but along with her steadfast boyfriend, she is eventually forced to flee her home as a political refugee seeking asylum in a distant country. Then there are the Magi, kings, if you will, or astrologers or astronomers, star men from the mysterious East who notice a new phenomenon in the skies and undertake a search for the star's meaning. As usual in these tales, an evil king makes his appearance. Finally, in this narrative, there is the witless innkeeper who misses his great moment in life with the famous line, "There's no room in the inn." These are part of the world turned upside down descriptions that accompany the entrance of God onto the stage of human history in the birth of Jesus. I want to take a closer look at a few of the characters in this topsy-turvy tale of gods and kings. Mary. Mary's story is a story of how an unexpected and unplanned pregnancy changed the course of human history. Mary's story is one of openness to God's unexpected appearance in life's events. Such experiences can be doorways for God's entrance into your life or mine. God rarely, if ever, appears in expected or safe ways. God's appearance always turns the world upside down. Soon after the baby is born, Mary and Joseph must flee to Egypt as refugees and asylum seekers, escaping a wicked king. It is amazing but true how some people have decided in our own day that the greatest threat to our nation and its security are hungry, dehydrated, exhausted families who have nothing but the clothes on their back, including a 7-year-old girl and an 8-year-old boy who die in government custody. Sadly, it is our own president who has decided that poor people and immigrants are a major threat to our nation's security. The Statue of Liberty stands witness to Emma Lazarus's vision of America. Send me your huddled masses, yearning to be free. Our leaders appear to remain unconcerned while being very concerned about immigrants and their threat, while remaining unconcerned about measures needed to end mass shootings of children in our nation, domestic terrorism, rape of the environment, unconcern for climate change, Russian interference in our nation's life, and political corruption at the highest levels. What a sad commentary that over 2,000 years later, after Jesus' birth, the same fears and hatreds raise their ugly heads today in our own national life. The whole Scripture, Old Testament, New Testament, sounds a persistent call to welcome the stranger and offer hospitality to the outsider. The Christmas message is clear: get your moral priorities straight. God's priorities are mercy, justice, welcome, inclusivity, safety, hope. Christmas forces a moral choice from each one of us. You cannot worship the child in the manger if you turn your back on the child at the border. The Magi and the innkeeper, the three wise men, or the Magi, were astronomers, stargazers, whose workaday world was to read the movements of the stars in the heavens and to discover the meaning therein. The Gospels honor the Magi because these people, these men, recognized God's appearance, not just in the heavens. They recognized God's appearance in the humdrum of their everyday routine life. And they followed the dream that appeared in the midst of the ordinary, and they found their treasure. It is precisely in the ordinariness, the routine of our life, where God most often makes an appearance. The Magi looked at the sky every day and finally found their treasure there. One call of Christmas to you and to me is to take a new look at the humdrum of our everyday life, for that is where we are most likely to find God making an appearance. And that our real treasure, the real treasure, is to be found in welcoming and serving our neighbor. Now, the innkeeper was no doubt a good man. He was a solid citizen of Bethlehem, a member of the Bethlehem Chamber of Commerce. He was an entrepreneur, respected, honorable. Perhaps he had dreams of a king coming to stay at his humble inn. Surely the king's arrival would be announced by trumpets blaring and drums beating and flags waving, so that all of Bethlehem could see and hear and recognize how important the innkeeper was. The innkeeper could not imagine God showing up in the midst of his ordinary day-to-day life, or God showing up without a reservation, or at least a royal guard or a drum or two. No king appears without extraordinary announcement. The innkeeper could not imagine God appearing as a pregnant, unmarried teenager and her boyfriend. The innkeeper read his Bible. He knew that he must offer whatever hospitality he could to the strangers, so he did offer the spare hospitality of his barn. The innkeeper's failure was not a lack of hospitality, but a lack of imagination. He could not conceive of God appearing in the routine of his daily life. We may give credit to the innkeeper for his offer of meager hospitality, but mostly we must remember him for his lack of imagination. And we have to pity him for spending his life looking for the wrong things when the real treasures were right in front of him in his everyday life. The Christmas story tells us it's time for our annual imagination checkup. Take time to make a long look around our life and the state of our imagination and find where God is making an appearance. And finally, that wicked king, Herod. The innkeeper was a good man who couldn't take God seriously as part of his life. But Herod, King Herod, that wicked and powerful king, took God's appearance in his life very seriously. Good people like you and me and the innkeeper, we may ignore God's presence in our life. But evil in this world always takes the presence of God most seriously, since the appearance of God foretells evil's downfall. Herod took God's appearance in his life so seriously that he lied to the wise men, feigning interest in the newborn king, and then he set about on a pogrom to kill all male children under 2 years old throughout his kingdom to rid himself of a potential rival. Herod was a self-serving, violent liar who used people, and when he perceived a threat to his own self-serving ends and to his power, massacres children in his kingdom and shows little loyalty to those who serve him. Herod also killed his wife, drowned his brother in a swimming pool in Jericho. I don't know what Herod's politics were. He was hated by many, but he also presided over a thriving economy. He undertook massive building projects, some of which remain today, and those projects plumped up the economy of his kingdom. This sounds eerily modern, doesn't it? In terms of the Christmas story, if you consider a child as your enemy, then you're the bad character in the story. If you consider refugee families seeking asylum and young children a threat to you or your nation, then you need to read the Christmas story more closely and consider changing the role you play in the story. Christmas is about the topsy-turvy economy of God's kingdom. Children, immigrants, poor folk, outcasts, no counts are held up as important and beloved by God, while those who are dedicated to wealth, power, control over others' lives are scorned. The Christmas story puts things topsy-turvy. The Christmas questions are, who's in? Who's out? Who's doing the suffering? Who's making a profit on the suffering of the poor, the young, the refugee, the outcast, the weak, the elderly, the sick, the vulnerable? The message of Christmas is this: Jesus is coming. And in preparation, and even in his birth, he's turning things upside down. Be alert, be aware. In the kingdom of this world, you'd better show up on time, have some money in your hand, and hope that there's a seat for you. In God's kingdom, it's never too late, and there's always room for one more. Welcome, and Merry Christmas.